investor friends, I'm Michelle Markin. First off, I want to say that my heart goes out to the Ukrainian people, and I hope they get through these extremely difficult times and overcome Russian aggression. And what I'm about to talk about in this video doesn't even compare to the amount of Ukrainian suffering that must be going on. So let's remember to practice gratitude. And if you're in a fortunate position, please consider donating to a legit humanitarian relief organization to help out the Ukrainian people. And in America, as bad as it is to be dealing with inflation of at least 7.5%, it's made worse with skyrocketing gasoline prices, just as more Americans are being asked to return to office. And now the price per oil barrel recently hit $130 per barrel, and some say it might even hit $150 per barrel the longer this Ukrainian Russian crisis goes on. And so what this means for us is that we should be really wary of what might happen with markets and continued rising prices in everyday goods and services that we're buying, as well as to be on the lookout for potential stock market buying opportunities, because when there's a lot of fear in the markets, that might be a time when stocks of our favorite companies could be going on sale. And so I'll also explain what I said in a February 23 comment on Graham Stephan's thoughts on the 2022 market crash, when I said, you know what happened the last time we had peak oil prices, to which Graham replied to me only, but which I'll explain what I meant when I said that. And also I'll talk about how Warren Buffett of Berkshire Hathaway recently bought $5 billion worth of Occidental petroleum with ticker symbol Oxy, and also how he recently bought $1 billion more of Chevron in Q4 2021. So it poses the question, should you follow Warren Buffett into those type of oil and gas energy type of investments? So I'll talk about all this, and if you appreciate content like this, please be sure to like and subscribe to my video and YouTube channel, because it greatly helps out with the YouTube algorithm, and I greatly appreciate it. Thanks. And it seems like the price of gasoline is escalating quickly, so you might want to fill up your tank if you have a gas-based car. And the record that was set for the average national price per gallon of gas was $4.11 in July 2008. And you might be wondering if we're starting to exceed that figure. And depending on what state you live in, you may have exceeded that already, although for the most part, maybe not yet, because as of February 2022, the U.S. Energy Info Administration had gas prices at $3.61, but that's not yet updated for March. So we could be way above the national record, but yet even though it seems like we may have already hit above $4 in the first time in over a decade according to AAA, that still might not be exceeding what it was in 2008 because of inflation. And if we look back 14 years ago, we would need to have gas at $5.37 to be equal to the 2008 record of $4.11 per gallon. Whereas right now with gas at about $4 per gallon, that is only equal to $3.07 in 2008. So we might have a ways to go, unless you live in California, where in some places you could be paying $6.99 per gallon, and a bunch of other West Coast states where you're also paying much higher gas prices. So all in all, we might be getting pretty close to the all-time record of gasoline prices, and you might be already feeling it if you live in California. And to explain the rationale of my comment, which on February 23 was the day after Russia had officially invaded Ukraine and the day before Russia officially attacked Ukraine on February 24. And if we take a look at historical patterns, as discussed by a bunch of articles, there's a strong link between oil shocks and also the probability for a US recession. And we've seen this happen where rapidly spiking oil prices have preceded recessions over the last 30 years, where it happened in the 1990 to 1991 recession, and again in the 2000s dot-com bubble recession, and then again in the 2007-8 great financial crisis, housing bubble, great recession. And so it could be potentially happening again now, as the last time I checked, oil seemed to be at around $120 per barrel, and that came down a little bit from the $130 figure, but it's still going up. And one analyst in this area named Nick Nicholas Colas observed 2 years ago that the magic number was 90%, that if we see oil prices go up by 90% in a 10 to 12 month period, then the US has a recession. And then now the same analyst was updated in saying when we see prices rise by 100% within a year, then the US should expect a recession. And so we can see that we're teetering on the edge of this being a pretty big deal, because he said to be on the lookout when price per oil barrels reach $100, so we've exceeded that already. And also he said that oil prices were only at $63.81 last year in March 2021, and so when that doubles, we should also be looking for kind of a downfall to happen. So that's pretty close. We only need to be at $127 per barrel to be at that point of doubling. And history seems to be rhyming, as our current events remind me of what happened when Kuwait was invaded, and then there was an oil spike and also a recession in 1990 into 1991. And so if we look at some historical patterns, that might be a little bit different from oil prices rising by 90 to 100% in only a year. We can see that back in June 1990, oil spiked by 241% to go from June 1990 to October 1990. And then this is a little different if we look at US average gasoline prices, but we saw an 81% jump from the low in gas prices in February 1999 through May 2001, and that was correlated with the dot-com bubble recession. And then there was also in the great financial crisis, housing bubble, Great Recession, we saw that oil prices also jumped 81% again from November 2006 to July 2008. And then finally, nowadays, if we look at the low in gas prices in April 2020 to where we were as of February 2022, we've already exceeded an 81% increase, because an 81% increase would be correlated to $3.51. And even as of February at $3.61, we've already exceeded that. So we could be ripe for another recession at any moment. And more likely, our gas prices are averaging way higher than $3.61 as well. And so you may be wondering if you should follow in the footsteps of one of the greatest of all time investors, Warren Buffett, into similar oil and gas investments, as, like I mentioned earlier, Berkshire upped its stake in one of its top 10 holdings in Chevron by $1 billion in Q4 2021, and now their overall Chevron stake is worth over $6 billion as of early March 2022 prices. So Buffett is definitely collecting a lot of that sweet dividend money. And also, in addition to this, it was revealed recently that Berkshire invested $5 billion in Occidental Petroleum as of early March 2022 based on recent SEC filings, and now they have at least 91 million shares of Oxy, and 2/3 of this 91 million shares were purchased in the first week of March 2022, and then the other third were purchased sometime in earlier 2022 because Berkshire Hathaway didn't own any Oxy stock as of Q4 2021. So this is a really new position for Berkshire, as well as this is in addition to an investment that Berkshire made in 2019 when it basically loaned $10 billion to Occidental so it could buy Anadarko for $38 billion. And that $10 billion loan was in the form of preferred stock and also warrants to buy common stock. And that was valued at about $10.7 billion as of the 2021 Berkshire annual report. And now those warrants and preferred stock may be worth even more given current conditions. And in addition to all this, those preferred stock gave Berkshire about $200 million of dividends per quarter because it was giving it 8% in dividends a year. So there's a lot of money that Berkshire had been collecting. And when times actually got tough in 2020, in order to make due on its loan, Occidental paid Berkshire about almost 29 million shares. And Berkshire ended up selling these shares in Q2 2020, and then it just bought back in Q1 2022. So now it seems like the investment case for Occidental could be particularly compelling, as Buffett seemed motivated to buy into Occidental again, just as activist investor Carl Icahn is exiting Occidental Petroleum after nearly 3 years. And although they had owned a small stake of 19 million shares in 2019, they had also gotten rid of that in addition to the almost 29 million shares that Oxy originally gave them. But now it seems like things have changed and Buffett is way more bullish on oil and gas stocks, as we can see here. And so knowing that Warren Buffett and or his investment managers, Todd and Ted, have invested in Chevron and Occidental Petroleum, and the answer is that it depends, because you have to ask yourself if oil and gas companies are within your circle of competence and if you thoroughly understand the oil and gas industry and also the cyclical nature of it, and also understand where things might be in the next several months to the near-term future in terms of what might happen, because the Ukraine-Russia conflict creates a lot of uncertainty. So even though it looks like a lot of gas prices are on the rise, who knows when that will end? And also, if you're investing now, consider that Buffett has been buying into some of these companies in 2021, and that means that you have been missing out on the opportunity to also buy into these same stocks. So maybe by the time you might consider buying into these companies now, could already be too late, because Buffett and team may have already totally satisfied the amount that they would like to invest in these companies, and then you might be buying just as these oil and gas companies' stock prices could be peaking, and then you could be left holding the bag if you don't understand what you're totally invested in. So it's important to make sure that you truly understand the oil and gas industry and you're able to predict where some of the future cash flows will be for some of these oil and gas stock companies, because if you don't know where they're going to be, that could also be a big problem in that you don't know when is the right time to sell as soon as the earnings might plummet for oil and gas companies. So just keep some of that in mind. And because some of these companies are outside of my circle of competence, I'm putting them in the too hard pile. So even though you might be willing to speculate and guess that with oil prices going up, maybe you can join in on the ride and then profit from the oil prices going up, and for a while the stock prices should also go up. You don't know when that's going to end. So for me, I'd rather play it safe and keep studying companies that I'm interested in and also that I'm able to understand. And I think that I'll be better able to sleep at night, because as soon as oil prices start pulling back, I don't know when or if the oil company stocks will continue to do well or not. So I have no way of being able to predict their future cash flows. So I'm better off not getting involved. And so if you found this video helpful, please be sure to like and subscribe to my video and YouTube channel. And I wish you luck in dealing with rising gas prices. And again, let's all hope that the Ukrainian people are able to make it through this difficult time. Till next time.